Hi guys, it's Thomas here from COTBASE.com. As I'm going to be out for the next COT report, traveling on the weekend, I'm recording this video on the 18th of July, so I can only analyze the 28th COT report of 2024. But as I have received requests regarding currencies, I figured out I'm just going to do a special edition on currencies for you guys, showing you the capabilities of the classic COT analysis together with the capabilities of our iCOT intraday indicator on currencies. So let's get started, and we're going to go over all the markets, starting with the Australian dollar. Here you can see we had an 18% change in commercials net positions. Usually we analyze the change signals first and then move on to look at the stress levels in these markets. You can do that either by the COT extreme. This column will show you how many reports ago did the trader category, in this case commercials, stood at that exact level. Now of course this is a number. When it's a low number, you might think that it's a small extreme, but that's not necessarily the case. And that's where the COT index can come in handy, which moves between 0 and 100%. So that could be very, very useful. You can see here we have British pound at 0% COT index. It's a significant bearish COT extreme. And the Swiss franc at 100% with 270 report COT extreme. This basically means that in the past 5 years, because the COT index is set for a 5-year look back period, you can change that if you'd like to look at other COT index look back periods from 6 months up to as long as the entire history of COT data if you wish. So let's get started. Let's open the Australian dollar and look at what we have here. I'm just going to switch back to the 5 years chart. So you can see that we have a bearish COT extreme in the Australian dollar. This is a 163 report extreme in commercials net positions, 168 report COT extreme for large speculators, a 10% and an 89% COT index value. So that's something that's worth mentioning or worth analyzing, in my opinion. And you can look back over here, basically about July of 2020 is when commercials sunk under the zero line, became net short, and they were there for quite a bit of time. Now this in itself can be considered a successful bearish COT extreme signal, because as you can see, it halted this rally. So once traders reached, well, on this 5-year chart, their most bearish extreme level, that actually coincided with the top in the Australian dollar on this 5-year chart. We are once again seeing traders moving in that direction. The only reason I'd be cautious on jumping into shorting the Australian dollar is that, as you can see back in 2020, if you were to go short, the Australian dollar actually has moved higher from there. So in itself, on its own, I would say COT report may not be the best tool to pinpoint the exact time going long or short. And that's where the iCOT intraday indicator with AfterSignal can be very, very helpful, identifying good entry and exit points. We'll get to that later. So that's the Australian dollar. By the way, just staying at this point, one of the questions from Amazon to my last review was, is there a way to time these changes better? And again, as COT reports are weekly reports, They used to be monthly, actually, back in the 80s, 90s. Then they switched over to a bi-weekly issuing of the reports. Today we have weekly COT reports, and I'm hopeful that one day we may get even more frequent COT reports being issued by the CFTC. In the meantime, an alternative solution, as I said, can be the iCOT Intraday Indicator. I'll show it to you just for 1 second here. If you're just new to this channel, then you should know that COTBASE.com is a service around the commitments of traders report. But throughout the years, we were able to create a unique indicator. It's called the iCOT Intraday Indicator, I standing for intraday. And you can see that it is very similar to the COT charts that you see from the classic COT reports. However, it is not the actual COT data. It is our own data. We call them, these are iCOT scores. But they do measure stresses in the market on the shorter time frames. This example here is gold on a 1-minute candlestick chart, and you can see that we indicate commercials, the red line, extremes with a yellow diamond underneath the candle if it's a bullish signal, or above the candle if it's a bearish signal. In case of speculators, this happens with the candlestick changing its color to blue. When we have both of these score lines at an extreme, we could get a stripe signal, this vertical line, red being a very strong sell signal, green being a very strong buy signal. And of course, this can be, I'll show you in the video some examples starting from a 4-hour candlestick chart down to even a 5-second chart, how it can be applied on currencies. Okay, so back to the currency edition review. We talked about the Australian dollar, and we're going to move over to the British pound. The British pound being the most bearish among all currencies at the moment, with a 0% COT index. So let's open the British pound, and you can see, actually, if we switch over to a 15-year chart, let's say, it's easy to see how significant of a bearish COT extreme we have at the moment. And of course, what you can do if you want to understand how the market reacted to these COT extreme signals is just simply go back in time, and you can see the correlation between these major extremes and then of course the market reaction. So anytime we had a significant bearish extreme, this one for instance just at the highest point, price point on this 15-year time horizon, coincided magnificently with a significant bearish COT extreme. So basically what I'm saying is, if you can identify a very good signal from the commitments of traders report, then you can actually use that information, and using other tools, for example the iCOT Intraday Indicator, you can then start looking for opportunities to enter that trade. So there are of course good examples for bullish COT extremes as well in the British pound. But right now we have a bearish COT extreme suggesting weakness. Now of course these currencies, the Australian dollar, the British pound, the Canadian dollar, all of these are measured in US dollars. So actually one thing I should show, and we're going to move over to the Canadian dollar just to go over all the markets. Here we have a bullish COT extreme, a very significant one, 81% COT index for commercials and 19 for large speculators. So this is signaling a bullish COT extreme. You can see the most weakest point for the Canadian dollar back from 2016 coincided with a bullish COT extreme. So these COT extreme signals could be very, very effective. Another thing you can do if you are trading the Canadian dollar is switching either from the Canadian dollar US dollar currency pair. Okay, so we not only show the futures chart, but we also give you the forex pair as well, and then you can actually look at the inverse as well, and you can see that the COT charts are going to flip. So I think it's a very useful feature for those who are trading currencies. Another thing that you should keep in mind with currencies is it has two sides. So if you are analyzing the Canadian dollar here, this is the US dollar Canadian dollar currency pair with this the inverse of the Canadian dollar futures COT report charts underneath. Is basically you can identify that the Canadian dollar, let's go back to the futures for a sec, just so nobody gets mixed up. So this is the Canadian dollar futures contract with the Canadian dollar futures and options COT data underneath. And what you can do is basically conclude that, well, based on this report, the Canadian dollar seems that there's a bullish COT extreme against the US dollar. Now, what I would do, if this is something that I find useful and interesting, is move over to the US dollar index, measuring, of course, the strength of the US dollar against a basket of currencies, the euro being the largest component, but the Canadian dollar is in there, and try to understand the stress level in the US dollar. Now, if you look at the simple US dollar index with its own COT data, then you can find that there's not necessarily such an obvious extreme in the market. So it's actually not even such a great bearish COT extreme. We have seen much greater bearish extremes in the dollar index. So what we can conclude is maybe it's a good take that the Canadian dollar, there's a bullish COT extreme in it. However, we may be better off with finding a different market, which is weak. The dollar index does not necessarily show that level of weakness. And another thing we should check is the true US dollar index, because basically with the true US dollar index, what we've done is we combine the individual currency futures and created a special unique data by calculating the exact dollar amount of how net long or short the given trader group is, and basically bringing you all of the information from the separate currencies that are in the dollar index in their own ratio, and this might give you a more clear understanding. And here, if you compare the true US dollar index to the normal US dollar index, you can see that the picture is a little bit more bearish than it was in the dollar index. Not too bearish, so we have seen more bearish extremes in the past. So once again, the conclusion is that the Canadian dollar seems like there's a bullish extreme over there, but the dollar itself does not necessarily show that big of a weakness. It could continue its rise as we've seen in the past right now. We can see even on this table that really, if you want to pick most strongest and weakest markets, then of course you can actually order our markets, and you will see that the Swiss franc has the greatest. Swiss franc and the euro British pound currency pair has the strongest COT index value, 100%. So we already concluded that British pound is, from a COT analysis perspective, the weakest amongst all currencies. We can conclude that the Swiss franc is the strongest. So that's another great tool that you may want to use. But back to the markets and just continuing on, we talked about the Canadian dollar. Let's move on to the euro. So in the case of the euro, and I'm going to switch back to the 5 years chart. Usually that's, I think, a significant amount of time already to analyze. Basically, you take this horizontal line and you put it to the most recent report for commercials. Let's see, of course, you can switch to large speculators, and you can see that it is a bit leaning towards the bullish side. Definitely not a bearish extreme or anything close to it. So it allows the euro to continue its rise. The next market will be the Japanese yen. And here in the Japanese yen, you can see we have a 98% COT index, so a significant bullish COT extreme is present in the Japanese yen. However, we have seen bullish COT extremes for many months now, suggesting that caution could be important in this market. Basically, we are at historical lows for the Japanese yen, right? That's the reason we are at this bullish COT extreme, but I would not be surprised if we see the decline continue in the Japanese yen while we get an even greater bullish COT extreme. It's definitely there, and it is suggesting that, for instance, over here from 2015, we had this significant bullish COT extreme just around this low. This low was in place up until 2022, I believe. So, yeah, bullish COT extreme in the Japanese yen, strength over there. So again, we mentioned the Swiss franc with 100% COT index value. Very bullish Swiss franc over here. We have seen greater bullish COT extremes in the past, but of course this COT index is measured on a 5-year look back period. So if we switch to the 5 years chart, you can see that it is the highest level of extreme in commercials net position, and by the way, it's the highest level of extreme in large speculators as well. This is suggesting strength in the Swiss franc. We talked about the dollar index. The Mexican peso is our next market. Here we have a 45% COT index, so basically in the middle, meaning there's no extreme, and we can't really make a conclusion based off of COT analysis. The New Zealand dollar is our next market. Here we have a 5% COT index in commercials net positions. That, of course, suggesting weakness in the New Zealand dollar. So weakness. We can go back in time and see what happened when we had a significant bearish extreme in the market. You can see that the commercials went net short June of 2020, and they kept their net short and increased their net short positions throughout 2020 up until early parts of 2021, and that correlated with the top in the New Zealand dollar against, of course, the US dollar. So this bearish extreme is even greater, suggesting that we should see some further weakening in the New Zealand dollar. The Russian ruble is our next market, 67% COT index, and you can see that there is no new values in the Russian ruble, meaning we do not have COT data. We cannot analyze the Russian ruble from a COT data perspective. You might want to change over to the iCOT intraday indicator for the Russian ruble. Brazilian real is our next market. Here we have a 94% COT index, 238 reports COT extreme, so it is a bullish COT extreme in the Brazilian real, suggesting strengthening in the medium to long term. The South African rand is the next market. Here we have a 29% COT index. It is a bearish COT extreme. You can see on the chart. We have seen a greater bearish extreme in the past. you can see that the bullish COT extreme happened just around the bottom over here. However, we did not really see a significant rise from the South African rand. And actually, throughout this period, we've witnessed traders shifting their positions from a more bullish stand towards a bearish extreme. We'll see what happens to the South African rand in the next couple of weeks and months ahead of us. The Euro-Japanese yen currency pair has its own market. However, you can see that there are times when we do not have new COT reports issued. So if it's a market that you are interested in, I would suggest looking at the euro and the Japanese yen separately in order to come to a conclusion. And by the way, it only dates back to 2017, so maybe not the best cleanest data. So I wouldn't necessarily spend too much time on this COT data. For the euro Japanese yen, the euro British pound may have a little bit more value to its COT data. Starting, I'd say, from 2016, you can see from 2014 there wasn't much of a information from COT report, but from 2016 you can see that we are getting some more useful information. Right now we have a bullish COT extreme, and we analyzed the euro and the British pound separately already, so I think we can conclude that that is really the case. And just closing off this special edition, I will open one market. Let's look at the euro British pound. So we have the iCOT intraday indicator with AfterSignal. We have two, as I suggested. One is focused on bullish opportunities and the other on bearish opportunities at the same time. So this is a 4-hour candlestick chart. You can see that it signaled well the bottom over here in the euro British pound currency pair. It signaled it with a speculator's extreme, so the color of the candle switched to blue just the last candle over here in this decline, pushing the market higher. We get a very successful bearish signal from speculators, commercials, the red line. This, of course, being the iCOT scores chart. Just at that top, we get a confirmation from AfterSignal, and since then we can see that the currency pair is coming down. Just at this bottom, we are getting a bullish stripe signal, suggesting that something is changing. We may see the euro British pound strengthening, so this analysis actually supports what we see in the classic COT report analysis. Moving to a 1-hour candlestick chart, just showing maybe a longer time frame over here. You can see a few opportunities. Of course, you have the ability to change the iCOT intraday indicator settings, so changing limits could be beneficial, but for now I'm just going to run over different time frames for you so that you can see a couple of examples. Let's look at a 5-minute candlestick chart. This one is actually a pretty decent one. We have a stripe signal just before this drop over here. We have a beautiful bullish stripe signal at the bottom, just at the bottom, and then of course a confirmation from AfterSignal, and basically you're in this trade for quite some time. But we can go down to the 1-minute candlestick charts. You can see how successful some sell signals are on this. Again, settings could be crucial. So this right now currently is set at a stop line close number of 0, but switching to a 4 we may get a better value or not. Or the other opportunity we can do, if we are looking at a more dynamic time frame like the 1 minute, is we can push out our stop line a little bit further, and that will actually catch a little bit longer moves. So this is something you can do. I am going to move it back to where we started just so we can move on. So this was the 1 minute, and I'll show you something extreme. Not that I suggest anybody trading the 5 seconds, but hey, you know what? There may be some interesting signals on the 5-second chart as well. So this was this Currencies special edition for you guys. Again, I recorded this on 18th of July, and I'll publish it on Friday or Saturday so that you kind of get the usual timing of my COT weekly reviews. I'm sorry I'll be out and wouldn't be able to do the review for the 29th COT report. But if you're interested in it, then do come to COTBASE.com and check it out. If you have any questions, feel free to comment underneath the video or send us an email to info@cotbase.com. If you enjoyed the content, then please consider subscribing and hitting the like button. We also have a Facebook page and an Instagram page if you'd like to follow us. The links are in the description for that as well. Have a wonderful weekend. See you next time.